Turn to M3 and Karen B for this week's episode of Comply on the Fly. You'll get quick and timely answers to the most common compliance questions so you and your business can keep moving ahead. Please note this podcast and the contents herein do not constitute legal advice. Please seek the advice of counsel for any benefit compliance related implementation guidance or strategy.
Hello, everyone. I'm Karen B. And the Comply on the Fly question of the week is, what is the current status of the legal challenges to OSHA's ETS, or Emergency Temporary Standard, regarding vaccinations and testing masking for private employers with 100 or more employees? Well, we previously provided you with information regarding that ETS via a webinar, podcast, and a toolkit on our website. As we know, OSHA issued the ETS on November 4th, 2021, and it was published in the Federal Register on November 5th, 2021. Initial implementation dates based on the effective date of November 5th were December 5th, 2021 for most requirements and January 4th, 2022 for testing procedures. The timelines are tight, and so we provided you with template materials in our toolkit so you could work toward compliance. However, we do need to address the current legal situation and where that leaves you with your compliance efforts. So let's talk about what is going on in a timeline sequence. First of all, of course, we had the issue of the ETS, and that was on November 4th, along with the publishing in the Federal Register on November 5th. Then, almost immediately, on November 6th, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit issued a temporary stay on the rule. A stay is essentially a legal pause on any action on that ETS. The stay was issued by a federal 3-judge panel and was the first step in this legal process. Then on November 12th, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit affirmed their previous order to continue that legal stay. In their order, they directed OSHA to take no further steps to implement or enforce the rule until further court order. On November 16th, since appeals were filed in multiple federal circuit branches, a lottery was conducted to determine which of the 13 federal circuit courts would handle the next steps of the challenge. The U.S. Court of Appeals for the Sixth Circuit was selected for the next step. This court will hear the case to determine how to proceed and what happens after that. If the ruling by the Sixth Circuit is unsatisfactory to either side in this case, this could potentially be appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court. With all of this in mind, the current status of the Emergency Temporary Standard is that the rule is stayed, or essentially paused, by the Fifth Circuit. However, just be mindful that the stay does not mean that the temporary rule has been struck down or declared illegal. Ultimately, we do not know what will happen to this ETS. We will continue to track the developments and update you as necessary. I don't think all of this means you turn a blind eye to the requirements of the standard, and background prep and some preliminary thought to how you're going to do this, if it does go into effect, is prudent. But as of now, OSHA is not implementing or enforcing the Emergency Temporary Standard. And that is your Comply on the Fly question of the week. Thanks for tuning in.
What's on your mind? If you have a pressing compliance question, send it to askkarenb@m3ins.com. We'll do our best to cover it in an upcoming episode of Comply on the Fly. Make sure to tune in next week and encourage others to join us.